literal mob rule in Bangladesh at the hands of pro-Pak Islamist groups and also unabated attacks on its Hindu community. You would think that the Prime Minister's focus remains on ending the chaos in the country where a genocide is going on. But Muhammad Yunus' first big move as PM has been withdrawing the corruption cases against him. Now, what's this corruption case? Well, in 1983, Muhammad Yunus' pilot project began operation as a full-fledged bank for poor Bangladeshis and was renamed Grameen Bank. By July 2007, the Grameen Bank had issued $6.38 billion to 7.4 million borrowers. For this project and for pioneering the concepts of microcredit and microfinance, Nobel Committee had awarded the Peace Prize to Yunis. An explosive investigation by Tom Heinemann in 2010 had revealed how the microcredit loan takers were trapped in a vicious cycle. Most of them had numerous loans in various NGOs and microfinance institutions, and many took new loans to cover the old ones. They paid annual interest rates ranging from 30 to 200% and were under extreme social pressure from the other members of their groups, not to mention how the loan officers would behave when it came to defaulting a single weekly payment. The investigation made public a number of secret documents which detail how Muhammad Yunus, back in the 1990s, transferred $100 million to a new company in the Grameen family in order to save tax in the future. Most of this money was donated as grants from Norway, Sweden, Germany, US and Canada. Following this reveal in 2011, Bangladesh's government-controlled central bank removed Yunus as the managing director of Grameen Bank. Multiple legal cases were slapped against him. These include a defamation suit, a food safety case and allegations of tax irregularities. In January this year, a court in Bangladesh sentenced Yunus to 6 months in prison for labor law violations. He managed to secure bail but still faces more than 100 cases regarding the siphoning of money from people of Bangladesh. In one such separate case, he was indicted in June on embezzlement charges. Yunus was accused of laundering 250 million takas, which is about $2 million from the Workers' Welfare Fund of Grameen Telecom. Yunus vehemently denied all charges against him, maintaining his innocence. Here's a tweet from none other than Hillary Clinton, who started a campaign to free Yunus, which sheds a lot of light on his conflict of interest and loyalties. To help understand the case better, we have with us Tom Heinemann, the man behind the investigations on Muhammad Yunus, joining us live. Tom, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being with us today. What do you make of this first move that Muhammad Yunus has taken after taking charge as the incumbent government's Prime Minister?
Well, one thing I will not comment on is the status of the politics in Bangladesh. This is not me to decide. I'm not a political expert. But surely there has been a lot of battling between the then Prime Minister Hasina and Muhammad Yunus. They are two different kinds of people who has two different kinds of politics.
Do you believe it's no surprise then that Muhammad Yunus has taken this step to actually absolve himself of the corruption charges? The first move he's taken?
Well, that's not up to me to talk about. There must be authorities in Bangladesh who can deal with that. I'm a journalist based in Denmark. I'm not sitting in Bangladesh currently.
But would that shock you, or is it unsurprising?
Well, look around in the world when somebody gets into power, a lot of court cases will fall. Let's look at the US.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about the cases then, Tom. You've done a lot of investigation in this particular matter, and you're very seized of the details, the nitty-gritties of the case. How serious were those charges against Muhammad Yunus? And just tell us, what were the reasons that he was indicted in the first place?
I don't know about the last thing, but I can tell you what we found during our investigation was a lot of secret, confidentially made files in the Norwegian Foreign Ministry's aid wing called NORAD. We obtained a lot of documents there where the Norwegian embassy in Bangladesh issued a really harsh warning to Muhammad Yunus and Grameen Bank to retransfer some money that has been transferred from the Grameen Bank into another company, trust I think it was, called Grameen Kalyan. The embassy said, you cannot do that. You have to transfer the money back because these aid money were given to Grameen Bank, not to another company. And then there was a lot of discussion, and we could see in the documents that that Mr. Yunus wrote to the then director of NORAD, that this particular letter from the embassy, should that go public in Bangladesh, they would face real problems in Bangladesh. This is a quote from the letter that Yunus sent to the Norwegian authorities. And we thought that these information were really, really important to our documents, to our documentary. So we, of course, published these documents. So from there, a lot of fussling started, but it ended that the Norwegian government sort of the Norwegian government said that there has been no wrongdoing. That can only be judged by them. And I totally disagree.
Absolutely. But of course, as far as also, the poor in Bangladesh, do you believe, there were serious charges of money meant for them getting siphoned off as well, allegedly by Muhammad Yunus and his affiliates?
This I cannot say much about. I'm not into these details, but one thing I can say that is we traveled extensively in the rural area of Bangladesh and met with a lot of loan takers, both from Grameen but also from numerous microcredit institutions, because they all had 5, 6, 7, 8 loans. And we asked them kindly, "Madam, why do you have 7 loans?" "Because I have to take a new loan to pay the old loan back." So they were sitting in a web of a spider's web of losing money on a daily basis. And every week the installment officers came, and there were many stories on harassments and taking off the tin shed plates of their roofing to sell them on the market for petty cash, to sort of send out a warning to all the other loan takers that you have to pay your installment. And that was, to me, it was a terrible story to tell, because at that time Muhammad Yunus was seen as the alleviator of poverty. And then after my film, and during the film, and after the film, numerous academics all over the world has basically said microcredit doesn't work. Basic, end of story. And I met a professor in Bangladesh at that time who said what he succeeded in, Mr. Yunus, he succeeded connecting the poor to the market. And that was his opinion.
Do you believe that there are question marks then over the functioning of Grameen Bank, according to you, and its real impact on alleviating poverty?
Yes, there is. Certainly there is a lot of good questions to be asked. One thing, though, is that we tried in vain for weeks and weeks and weeks to get a comment or an interview with Muhammad Yunus. So we traveled several places in Europe where he was supposed to come to a talk or speech or receiving an award, but he just, I managed to give him my business card, but he just turned the back on me and went away. And then his PR people and spin doctors or whatever, they promised me that I would get answers to all my questions. I never got one, except that they keep on saying that my film was biased and I was wrong and all my allegations were wrong. So I'm just asking, if I did anything wrong, don't you think they would sue me for that?
Yes, but you weren't sued, of course, and you didn't get answers to your questions, as you said earlier, either. But, there has been a backing of Muhammad Yunus by the US as well. And interestingly, one individual who stands out is Hillary Clinton, former US Democratic presidential candidate and wife of the former US President Bill Clinton. What do you make of the US's steadfast backing for him and also Hillary Clinton's?
Well, there's a clip in the film which is hilarious in a way. Hillary Clinton and her daughter Chelsea visits a rural area in a town, very rural, small town, to see how fantastic this microcredit worked. But according to a U.S. scientist, Jude Fernando, he was there also, and he found out that these women were taken into this town in buses with their finest saris on to give the impression that everything is everywhere all happy. So Yunus and Mrs. Clinton has a very close relationship, and Hillary was also part of the some of the big grants given by the world societies into Grameen Bank, according to Jonathan Murdoch, a professor at New York University. It mounted up to in grants, not loans, in grants up to 175 million US dollars. And these money were given unconditionally to Grameen Bank to set up this loan scheme where poor people could loan money. And another professor, economist in Bangladesh, he calculated that the average interest rate from a Grameen Bank account to the poor people was between 27 and 31%. So imagine you getting 175 million US dollars and re-lend them out to 27 to 30%. That's a good business, but I'm not sure it's so good for the poor people.
Absolutely. As far as, of course, the US is concerned, do you also believe that it's highly suspicious now that Muhammad Yunus has come to power at a time when the US also is being indirectly accused of toppling Sheikh Hasina's administration as well? Now, whether that's correct or not, you or I cannot comment or know. That's something that investigation, of course, will be able to establish. But do you believe that these are dots that perhaps are being connected? The US allegedly not happy with Sheikh Hasina. Sheikh Hasina allegedly, accusing them of wanting her to hand over the Saint Martin Island to them. Suddenly Sheikh Hasina goes and Muhammad Yunus comes to power.
I think it's purely speculations, and as I said initially, I don't want to comment on the current political issues and the situation. Both
but do you believe that Muhammad Yunus? Do you believe that Yunus?
I like to emphasize.
Do you believe Yunus is close to the US?
You believe what?
Muhammad Yunus is close to the United States of America.
He has always been.
Okay.
So that's not news. He was educated over there. But again, I don't want to speculate in these questions and suspicions.
Yes.
What I care about is the poor people of Bangladesh. Mm-hmm. And I gave them a voice with my film. Mm-hmm. I could have had maybe higher hopes that the whole microcredit industry, not only Grameen Bank or Yunus, but the whole industry would take a deeper look into themselves and don't think about making money instead of, sucking out the poor people's money.
But that didn't happen. That didn't happen. You're disappointed.
No, that's a traditional journalistic thing. You win some, but you lose some.
Okay. Tom Heinemann, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this story. Yes. You've, of course, directed that film, as you were telling us. It's called The Micro Debt. That's a documentary that Tom Heinemann has made.
It's public available on my website, so
yeah,
anyone can see it, and it's in English.
Okay. Tom, thank you for being with us. Let me get in our other guests. Ambassador Suresh Goyal is joining us now live, former diplomat. We also have Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, live with us. Manan Dwivedi, international affairs expert, also with us live. Ambassador Goyal, Muhammad Yunus comes to power. Many expect a lot from him. What's the first thing he does? Drops cases against himself. Disappointing? Pragmatic? What's your take?
I really don't know. There are so many speculations here. There are so many charges. There are so many allegations. The whole narrative has been presented. Difficult for me to say what the truth behind all this is, unless we know all the facts here. And as far as Muhammad Yunus dropping all the charges against him is concerned, I do not know. I thought that these charges were dropped actually before he came to Dhaka. But the timing is not important. Once you know that Muhammad Yunus is actually the person, and the students have, the protesting students have endorsed him to become the head of the interim government, then even 2 days before, 3 days afterwards, that doesn't really matter. The point really here is Uh, when he was not in power, when he was heading the Grameen Bank, when the microcredit financing scheme were all over the newspapers, and they were being touted as a kind of a future for the poor people who could not afford huge amount of bank loans. And therefore, the microfinancing was considered to be the way out for the poorest of the poor. Everybody lauded it. Everyone, including those in India. It was considered to be the way of the future. Again, uh, as an economist, I thought that was great. Sorry, I'm not an economist, but from what I read at that time, I thought that was very good. Now it turns out that it was not so good, and there were some allegations raised by Tom before me on this scheme. I think whenever these things happen, the best way to do really this is let them be investigated by the proper authorities. Let them investigate it, let them come to a conclusion as to what the truth behind it, that is. The cases have been dropped, but I think if there are any serious allegations against anyone, just like in India or in Bangladesh or in the USA, anywhere, and it is all the more important for people who are in the high offices that those cases be investigated and the facts brought out, because they must be holding a torch to the future, to the public. So let them be investigated and to be found out. But before we investigate, before we find the truth, I don't think that I would be in a position to say anything with great certainty that this is what it is. It's easy, as it happens in any country, it's easy to level accusations against anyone in the public offices. I would avoid that kind of a tendency as far as possible, but not rule out the way to investigate them before actually going forward. Okay.
Professor Nalapat also with us now live. Professor Madhav Nalapat, the US has been known to be close to Mohammed Yunus. No surprise then that the US accused of ousting Sheikh Hasina, and Mohammed Yunus suddenly comes to the fore in Bangladesh. But so far, are you hopeful of him changing the situation, making a difference, or is he going to be more or less the same?
Uday, have you been to the United States? Do you know anybody who's educated in the United States? I don't know. Would you call them American stooges? I wouldn't, and you wouldn't. Let's be honest. The Danish guy was saying that microcredit doesn't work.
Yeah.
Have you heard of a bank called Syndicate Bank? It started by V.A. Pai, T.M.A. Pai, and Vaman Kudla. It worked very well. And please come to Manipal now, and you'll see the difference between when the pygmy deposit scheme of Syndicate Bank, which is a microcredit scheme, and a micro deposit scheme was launched. There's a big difference. So I'd like to say, I'm sorry, microcredit does work in a lot of places. And I've seen very often, let's be honest. I mean, Syndicate Bank, for example, after Dhirubhai Ambani suffered problems in 2 or 3 of his attempts, he came back, and only one bank was willing to give him money, and that bank was Syndicate Bank, because they trusted him. They somehow felt that there's something in this man that will work. And lo and behold, Dhirubhai Ambani became a business force that is now, who is now studied across the world for his business acumen. So, but for Syndicate Bank, he would not have got the money needed to start the Ambani saga, which has employed so many hundreds of thousands of people and have paid so much of taxes and done a lot of good things, if I may say so. But while at the same time, the Ambani family has also done well out of it. There's no question. So please don't tell me microcredit doesn't work. Now, if one thing that can send Donald Trump to jail, if you send Donald Trump to jail, the only thing now that can get him elected against Kamala Harris is if Judge Murchan sends him to jail. Trump goes to jail, believe me, the man will sweep the polls. He is going to be sworn in as president. And guess what he's going to do? He's going to drop all the cases against himself. But for the fact that frankly, Biden has gone after him, or rather the Justice Department, I don't think Biden is responsible. Whoever is that investigator has gone after him in a way they have not gone after any other former president. They've gone after him as though he were a long-term criminal and a long-term felon. And that's what got him popular and got him the Republican nomination. You send him to jail, you're going to get him the White House. So frankly, Muhammad Yunus, it doesn't surprise me when he signed that pardon for himself. It's the first thing anyone in power would do once coming to power, especially in a situation, in a context where, let me remind you, I've seen, say 10 years ago, 20 years ago, so many people have come to me with stories of their startups, how they're now implicated in police cases because companies did not want their startups because the startups produce cheap goods, high quality goods, and compete with much bigger companies. So they activate the police, they get all kinds of fake news published, they get all kinds of fake documents, and then the chap is in legal trouble for the next 20 years, and the end of his startup, which could have benefited hundreds of thousands of people potentially. Facebook, Google, Yahoo, they were all in sheds. They were all in a single bedroom of a house. That's where they started. So I'd like to, in India, I can tell you, now of course under Prime Minister Modi, things are different. People are now watchful. But otherwise, it is, and it unfortunately still is, the easiest thing in the world to send somebody to jail in India. I had warned the UPA several times in writing, get rid of criminal defamation. They didn't do it. Rahul Gandhi today, he is now on bail. Let's be honest. He is now on bail on a defamation charge. A charge against him, apart from the much more serious charge that a private citizen put on him before he was in any political party. You can't see a political motive to that charge. Subramaniam Swamy filed that case, and today Sonia and Rahul are in bail on that single case. So please, Uday, I've been around quite a while. I've seen a lot of situations. If something looks black or white on the surface, it's not. You please look for the spots of gray. So I'd like to say what Mohammed Yunus did was rational. Now he can freely concentrate on doing the rest, which is to get a moderate government in office and to go after radicals. If he does that, he'll have justified this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's a rational and a prudent step taken by Mohammed Yunus, and also you have vouched your strong disagreement with what Tom Hinneman said earlier on microcredit and of course the allegations he leveled on Mohammed Yunus and his working of the Grameen Bank. Let me get in Manan Dwivedi as well.
Not the allegations. I'm just saying his pardon to himself was correct. That's all.
His pardon to himself was correct, and you also disagree with the allegations on microcredit leveled by Tom. Okay.
Now we can function with
Manan Dwivedi, come in here. Let's get in Manan Dwivedi.
With courage.
Okay. Professor Nalapatha, I'll come back to you. Let me get in Manan Dwivedi as well for his take and perspective. Manan Dwivedi, what's your take on, of course, these charges on Mohammed Yunus which were leveled earlier? Do you believe they were incorrect? Do you believe that this is a rational step taken by Mohammed Yunus? And what does this really say about the days ahead of his interim government?
Actually, if you look into it, I think the establishment or the people who are the power bearers and who are the power wielders in Bangladesh right now, in the post-Sheikh Hasina phase, in the post-rebellion phase, they had no other option. They had no other option but to bring in somebody with a semblance of credibility. Now, definitively, we all have been knowing, we all know about the allegations, the linkages that Mohammed Yunus enjoyed with the Clinton Foundation. And specifically, there were some interesting snippets doing the rounds in the media earlier on and now also that when Muhammad Yunus created the Telenor, a specific telecommunication machinery that was questioned by the people, both on the monetary and the ethical grounds, and then the idea of the yogurt, which was introduced by Muhammad Yunus when he was at the peak of his powers. But I think instead of going to BNP, and instead of going to the Islamic fundamentalists and the radical elements in Bangladesh, I think the people who are in power in Bangladesh had no other option but to call Muhammad Yunus. And I personally feel, I'll be very brief here, that there should not be much of a comparison. There cannot be a comparison between the president of the most powerful nation state on the face of the earth, that is President Donald Trump, and what Muhammad Yunus stands for as an advisor of the interim. He is not the head of the state as yet, but he's an advisor of the interim government there. So, we have to look into and keep our fingers crossed and to find out how Muhammad Yunus tackles it. But still, if you look into it, the question of probity, ethicality, morality, and values, that is something which has become nearly redundant and non-existent as far as choosing our heads of states and premiers are concerned. So I personally feel that Muhammad Yunus, but he might be, I am not a conspiracy theorist, but there's a lot of weight in this argument that he might be a public face of a larger movement, which is gathering face all across, gathering steam all across the global polity, where the radical elements, the Maoists, and to a certain extent, the Islamic fundamentalists and jihadis, they have a chain of money. They have a hold on the services and value chains. And maybe Muhammad Yunus is coming to the fore as an advisor of the interim government can be a reflection of that particular movement against countries like India, United States of America, and other countries who are coming together. We are not prognosticating a world war. There is no panic scenario. I'm not talking about a conspiracy theory. But still, it is very much evident that Muhammad Yunus might be a character who might be a stooge. And he will come out with the politically correct statements and decisions. But the real power wielders and decision makers would be the military junta or the Islamic radicals who are not actually premised in Bangladesh, as far as I can foresee.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.